The world of this family is soon to come crashing down in ways that no one could have envisioned. It starts with a stealthy, near-silent move, a solitary wife seeking sole custody of her kids. But this is no typical custody struggle. This is a confrontation that will rock the foundation of a multifaceted, enmeshed family, exposing fissures long buried beneath their surface. Maya, Kody's wife, is at her breaking point. She's spent years juggling motherhood, marriage, and the burden of sharing a husband in a multiple-wife family. She's felt disregarded, her issues dismissed, and her children's needs occasionally an afterthought. Today she stands up, not for herself, but for what her children deserve. This is a legal strategy that shakes up the family. Kody, normally the steadfast patriarch, is taken aback. The other wives are put in crisis mode, their allegiances tested, and their loyalties questioned. The children, naive and oblivious to the turbulence gathering around them, can feel the tension. Their once happy household becomes cold, quiet, and fragile. The courtroom is the arena for a drama of suffering, resentment, and desperate longing for stability. Maya's lawsuit isn't about custody, it's about fairness and acknowledgement. She contends that Kody's attention is too divided, that favoritism has made her and her children vulnerable. She comes to court with evidence, anecdotes, and emotion, each sentence a blow against the fragile cohesion of the family. Kody struggles back, both legally but emotionally as well. He denies his love for all his wives and children, but begins to crack. The pressures of finances, emotional stress, and the difficulties of keeping a big family in the spotlight all come flooding into the forefront. His defense opens up vulnerabilities that nobody anticipated. The other wives are conflicted. Some quietly back Maya's assertions, understanding her pain. Others are afraid of the fallout from the public struggle. Quiet conversations and strained meetings reveal cracks in the family that were never before apparent. The custody battle is revealed to be more than a legal case. It's a reckoning. Along the way, the voices of the children are frequently silent, but their experiences ripple through every quarrel and accusation. Their confusion and terror are felt, and the human cost of the fight becomes impossible to deny. How will this family make it when the very ties that bound them together are strained as never before? As the courtroom drama unfolds, secrets are revealed, hidden financial woes, domestic spats overheard, and instances of neglect buried for years. With each one, the family's meticulously crafted image is chipped away, revealing raw wounds and vulnerabilities. The drama in the courtroom mounts as Maya becomes tearful, describing the agony of feeling forgotten and excluded. Kody, typically reserved, cracks under the pressure of frustration and heartache. The judge, between legal dogma and human compassion, balances each shred of evidence with seriousness. Outside court, the media come to feel the scope of the story. Rumors spread and public perception is split. The family's private battles become a public spectacle, creating another pressure and complexity. But in the midst of the mayhem, there are glimpses of softness that remind us of the love that remains. Kody's earnest attempts to be a good dad, Maya's hot anger about her children's welfare, and the wives' different struggles to keep the family afloat all create a messy picture of resilience and hope. It's a tale of the vulnerability of family, the price of secrets, and the extent to which individuals will sacrifice in order to keep the people they care about safe. It's about living the impossible decisions that love spread over many homes and hearts entails. Will this family be able to find a way forward? Are the broken pieces fixable? Or will this custody dispute be the break that shatters them forever? What would you do if you were in their shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Retention booster lines are organically integrated into the story above, and will be clearly bolded throughout the full script expansion, with around 300 word spaces as per your request. The courtroom was charged with tension the day Maya's custody hearing formally commenced. Something that was supposed to be a confidential legal proceeding had now turned into a very charged event, and all members of the family sensed the pressure of what was going to happen. The judge appeared, ushering a quietness in the room, indicating this was not an ordinary case. This was a war that would prove their allegiance, expose deep-seated wounds, and challenged the very essence of their family. Maya's lawyer stepped forward first, their voice firm yet fervent. They started out by setting out the heart of Maya's case, that Kody had been absent in ways that counted, ignoring her and her children for the other wives. The attorney produced detailed accounts of where Kody had been, referencing missed school activities, canceled appointments, and financial support distributed unevenly. It was apparent that Maya's team had worked carefully to demonstrate that Kody's divided attention was actually causing damage. But it was not all forms and schedules. Maya's lawyer asked her to testify, to give a face to the legal case. Trembling, Maya spoke of sleepless nights over worrying about her children, being alone to care for them, and seeing Kody's presence in their lives disappear. The courtroom was still except for the quiet snatching of her tears as she spoke about times when she felt invisible within her own family. The mood changed. This was now more than a custody battle. It was a bare emotional appeal. Kody's defense followed, his tone a blend of sadness and ire. He told of the enormous burden of juggling so many partners and the economic hardship the family faced. He acknowledged wrong turns were taken, that he hadn't been perfect in his attention, but asserted that his love for Maya and all the children never wavered. He sketched a figure of a man pulled taut but passionately devoted. But cracks got visible. Cross-examination brought inconsistencies in Kody's timeline to the surface, where his recollections diverged from other evidence. Queries about his spending habits brought hints of hidden debts and stretched resources to the fore. The judge's piercing gaze didn't miss any detail, indicating that the court would scrutinize every point. The wives sat in the gallery, their faces a mixture of anxiety, support, and uncertainty. Some held hands in silent solidarity with Maya, others averted their eyes with tension palpable in the air. As the day went on, the children were brought in, not to testify but to be seen. Their reserve of behavior, withdrawn stares, and subdued expression, told a story about what was happening at home. Witnesses testified to how the children had been caught up in the middle, having to deal with the changing dynamics of their parents' broken relationship. In a more heated instant, one family counselor described confidential sessions in which Maya felt abandoned and scared her children were drifting away from their father. Kody's efforts to remain involved were noted but framed as erratic and spotty. The courtroom was filled with hushed chatter. It was obvious this was not simply about custody. It was about the emotional survival of a family under duress. The custody battle was not only legal, it was intensely personal. The afternoon took an unexpected turn when a confidential financial report was filed. It laid out that the money woes of the family were more dire than anyone would publicly acknowledge. Costs were increasing, debts mounting, and the lifestyle of the family was stretched to the breaking point. This detail created additional skepticism about Kody's capacity to provide equally and equally. Maya's attorney jumped at the opportunity, asserting that economic uncertainty further jeopardized the children's welfare under Maya's watch. Kody's attorneys rushed to respond, vowing to belt-tighten and put the children's interests first. As the session came to a close, Maya was questioned regarding her dreams for the future. Her response was straightforward but compelling. A secure home in which her children were safe, loved, and given priority. She recognized the difficulties of their non-traditional family, but refused to compromise on fairness and consideration. Kody sincerely pondered the vulnerability of their family situation and the weighty price the public court fight was exacting. His tone suggested remorse, but also a resolve to stand up for what he considered right. The judge recessed the hearing with an assurance the choice before him would involve a deliberate weighing of all the facts and the intricate reality of the family. Outside the courtroom, the broken dynamics of the family appeared to intensify. There was greater caution in conversations, higher emotional pitches. Each one struggled with personal pain and expectations for reconciliation. What no one could dispute was that the custody case had stripped the family's carefully guarded facade from it, revealing the very human issues at hand. As the court hearings continued, every heart in that family was left to wonder, was love enough to keep them intact? If you were watching this dramatic courtroom fight, whose team would you be on? Let us know in the comments. The courtroom was filled with tension and anticipation. Maya's custody hearing had commenced, and everyone understood that this was something more than a legal proceeding. It was the time when years of background complaints, neglect, and unmentioned hurt would be heard by all. The judge, a serious woman with an intense stare, sat down, marking the beginning of what was sure to be a war filled with emotion and naked reality. Maya's lawyer stood first, calm and measured. Their case was simple. Kody Brown, patriarch of the family, had defaulted in his responsibilities toward Maya and her children, tending to their emotional and material needs over those of his other wives and their children. They set out painstaking records of missed school events, rescheduled appointments, and skewed financial support. It was cold, calculating, but underlying the facts was a more sinister tale. One of a wife who felt invisible and a mother determined to defend her children. Next, Maya came forward. The courtroom was silent as she spoke of her struggles in a voice little more than a whisper. "There were nights I lay awake wondering if Kody even cared if we were all right," she said. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke of the suffocating isolation of caring for her children mostly on her own. Her words were not just a legal testimony. They were a poignant appeal for acknowledgement and justice. This wasn't merely a case of custody. It was an unvarnished emotional admission that revealed the cracks in a family that had long concealed its imperfections. Kody's defense lawyer responded with an image of a man weighed down by impossible obligations. Kody testifies himself, his tone thick with regret and frustration. He admitted that he wasn't perfect and agreed with the sheer pressure of handling multiple families and limited means. "I love all my wives and children equally," he assured. "But sometimes I fail." In spite of his sincerity, the cross-examination brought inconsistencies to light. Inquiry into his schedule uncovered gaps and contradictions, and financial statements revealed increasing debts and strained resources. The judge's pointed questions evinced incredulity, questioning Kody's assertions of equal love and concern. Gallantly, but in silence, the wives viewed it all from the gallery. Some cast glances nervously at Maya, while others deliberately shunned eye contact. The air was heavy with unspoken allegiances and underlying resentments. The children were monitored closely, but not summoned to testify. Their reserved, withdrawn behavior was eloquent testimony to the emotional cost of the war. Counselors talked about sessions in which the children were confused and afraid of the family's uncertainty, divided between rival loyalties. In a dramatic moment, a family therapist testified to Maya's sense of abandonment and fear that her children were pulling away from their father. In acknowledging Kody's trying, the therapist painted a canvas of inconsistency and emotional distance that bore heavily on the children's well-being. The courtroom had become a battlefield where love, neglect, and responsibility collided in painful consequences. Halfway during the hearing, a confidential fiscal report stunned everyone. It exposed that the debts of the family were worse than initially made known, questioning Kody's capacity to support all his wives and children equally. Maya's attorney took advantage of the moment and claimed that financial instability posed further risk to the children's security in the hands of Kody. Kody's staff vowed to retrim expenditures and put the needs of the children first, but the damage was already done. The report put another layer of complexity into an already contentious case. As the day went on, Maya was questioned about her aspirations for the future. Her response was straightforward but profound. A secure, loving home where her children would be free from fear and neglect to prosper. She recognized the challenges in their non-traditional family, but maintained that her children were entitled to fairness and stable treatment. Kody, clearly agitated, testified about the toll the court fight was taking on all concerned. His testimony showed a man trapped in love, duty, and his own limitations. The judge recessed the hearing, cautioning that the upcoming decision would need a delicate weighing of fact, emotion, and the peculiar nuances of this family's situation. Outside of the courtroom, things ceased. Dialogue was stiff and guarded. Every family member struggled with his or her own hurt, fears, and hopes for healing. What couldn't be denied was that this custody fight had stripped away the vulnerabilities and fractures that lay beneath the surface of the family, leaving each heart wondering if love alone was enough to keep them together. If you found yourself watching this intense courtroom drama, whose side would you take? Let me know your thoughts below. The courtroom drama was scarcely over when the ripple effects started to rend the family's fragile ties. The battle for custody was no longer the prerogative of legal specialists and judges. It had seeped into every aspect of their lives, opening up old sores and revealing suppressed grudges that had been burning under the surface for years. The wives, once all in support of one another's commitment, found themselves in disagreement. Some secretly allied with Maya, sympathetic to her accusations of neglect and resentful of her loneliness. Others defended Kody staunchly, believing the strength of the family rested upon stability, and believing the public dissension would only speed their disintegration. Secrets were shared in the rooms they occupied. Sneaking conversations behind doors, furtive looks cast at dinner tables, and discussions that resembled more charged negotiations than bonding moments. Trust, once unquestioned, was now brittle and in short supply. It was no longer about legal guardianship. It was a war to possess the heart of the family. Behind the scenes, allegiances broke, covert alliances were forged, and surreptitious betrayals began to germinate. Some of the wives shared their fears and frustrations with each other, while others isolated themselves, struggling with the emotional burden in secret. The solidarity they had worked so hard to preserve started to come undone, strand by fine thread. The kids, caught in the middle, had the silent weight. Their own confusion escalated as they felt the tension, but were unable to make sense of the involved adult complexities. They were shaken by a growing fear that their own family would never be the same. Private moments uncovered the emotional toll. Once a pillar of strength, a wife now wondered if loyalty to the family came at the expense of her own needs. Another wrestled with guilt, torn between defending Maya and being guardian of the family's public image. The tension was tangible. Conversations that previously flowed with ease turned cautious, each word measured and emotions concealed behind forced smiles. The very house they lived in felt changed, chillier, quieter, with an undercurrent of tension. At the center of it all was the question, was it possible for them to meet halfway before the cracks became unbridgeable? The battle over custody had ignited a reckoning. Old resentments came to the surface. Long-held grudges, familiar grievances, perceived slights, and silent disappointments spanning years. What had been repressed now cried out for consideration, confronting the family with uncomfortable realities. As the heat of emotion flared within them, sparks of tenderness and hope sometimes showed. A quiet gesture of support, a shared memory, or a brief moment of understanding reminded them of the bonds that had brought them together. These fragments were feeble but vital. They showed glimpses of the family they could still be. But the tension was still heavy. Public scrutiny put pressure on it, with media rumor-mongering and neighborhood gossip heightening the stakes. The family's personal strife had been made into a circus, and the world's eyes sat in wait, anticipating the next fissure. Would they ride out the tempest? Or would the custody battle be the catalyst that finally sundered them? As they treaded this sensitive terrain, the children and wives had their own wars, between loyalty and reality, love and pain, hope and hopelessness. Every decision had significance, forging the future of the family in profound terms. In this melting pot of contention and feeling, the family reached a fork in the road. The direction they took would not only determine the fate of the custody case, but the very nature of who they were as a unit, together or apart. What do you believe keeps a family together when it seems like everything is coming unraveled? Share your thoughts below. The courtroom drama had been building up to a boiling point. Just as it appeared that the battle for custody could be nearing its conclusion, a shocking new development shook the very foundations of all who were present. A previously hidden, secretly recorded audio tape was about to upend the entire case. This tape was not merely a piece of evidence, it was an exposé of private discussions, unvarnished feelings, and realities no one had expected to be disclosed in public. It caught a moment of interaction between relatives that stripped away the firmly erected layers of loyalty and silence to reveal the intricate and often agonizing realities they had worked so hard to suppress. The judge's voice cut through the murmurs as the tape was played. The room became silent, listening to every word, every intonation, every pause captured on tape. What the recording showed was upsetting and heartbreaking. Maya's accusations, although based on actual pain, were not as one-sided as they appeared to be. The tape captured instances of Maya's own doubts, frustration, and even hyperbole. But it also exposed Kody's own failures, his judgment lapses, times when he neglected her, and emotional remoteness. The courtroom became a crucible of competing realities, making everybody face unpleasant truths. The wives exchanged shocked looks. Some of them appeared betrayed, others resigned. The judge's queries sharpened, seeking explanations and accountability. The tape did not just incriminate individuals. It incriminated the whole family situation, and one saw a knotty web of love, disappointment, and fallibility of human beings. Media personnel waiting outside felt the weight of the moment. Rumors had already started circulating, and now there could be no denying the scandal. The family's intimate problems were laid bare on a public platform, their frailties exposed to the world. In the midst of it all, the emotional cost was inescapable. Tears, gasps, and murmured apologies flooded the courtroom. The burden of the truth was immense, but so was the potential for healing and understanding. This revelation was a turning point, both in the courtroom struggle and in the family's path toward healing or further fragmentation. The judge took a recess, requesting the court to process what had been just uncovered. In the streets outside the courthouse, the air was charged. Journalists pushed for comments, while the family members stood to face public attention and private grief. Behind closed doors, the tape incited heated discussions. The wives dealt with their own sense of betrayal and loyalty, trying to square the brutal realities with their love for Kody and each other. Maya wrestled with the repercussions of what she had done, caught between her need for justice and the unforeseen consequences. The children, not yet old enough to understand the intricacies, sensed the tension in all contacts, their own world changing beyond what they could contain. With this change, the family was at a crossroads, having to choose to break apart further, or to somehow reconstitute into wholeness. This explosive news altered the custody fight, making the judge's decision more difficult and heightening the emotional stakes. It was no longer just a matter of custody, but a rich exploration of trust, responsibility, and what constitutes family. The drama in the courtroom went on, the echoes of the recording continuing, a reminder that in families, as in life, truth is never easy or one-dimensional. What would you do if a hidden truth came to light in your family? Could forgiveness be possible? Share your thoughts below. The courtroom drama that had gripped the family and captivated the public was finally approaching its conclusion. After weeks of intense testimony, emotional confrontations, and shocking revelations, the judge was ready to deliver a decision, a ruling that would shape the future of the family in profound ways. The judge's words were heavy and thoughtfully weighed. The custody fight had never been a clear case of right and wrong. It had been a richly textured weaving of love, neglect, loyalty, and human fallibility. The decision respected that richness, rather than awarding sole custody to Maya, or brushing aside her petitions entirely, the court settled on a shared custody option, underscoring the need for both parents to be present in the children's lives. But this wasn't a mere legal requirement, it had strings attached. Kody had to undergo family counseling sessions, aimed at confronting the deep-seated issues that had broken the family. Maya also consented to keeping lines of communication open with the other wives, to work together and respect each other for the benefit of their children. This ruling was an acknowledgement that family, particularly one as non-traditional as theirs, took compromise, empathy, and healing, not authority. The reaction of the family was hybrid. There was relief, cautious hope, and residual hurt all in the same place. The decision was not a win or a loss, but a step toward reconstituting something fragile but critical. Outside the courtroom, newsrooms swirled with rumors, but among the family's inner circle, attention turned to hard work to come. In private exchanges, doors to candor long shut opened. The wives started to confront one another, as well as their own pain, guilt, and love. Emotional scenes were played out, tearful apologies, thank yous, and tentative vows to improve. The children, the focal point of it all, felt the atmosphere shift. The tension that had hung over their home gradually dissipated, made way for guarded hope. Healing did not come overnight, but a willingness to attempt it was a strong first step. When family counseling sessions commenced, old habits were broken. There was better communication, boundaries established, and all members space to express their feelings and fears. The process was tough, at times agonizing but inescapable. The wives discovered new means of supporting one another, balancing individual needs with the overall well-being of the family. Kody, having been humbled by the process, became more proactive in fostering relationships and fairness. With these transformations, the family began to redefine what it means to be together, not perfect or conflict-free, but strong and committed. Their journey was a testament to the nuances of love and family, particularly in atypical situations. The custody fight had made them face their greatest challenges, but it had also shown them strengths and ties that perhaps may have otherwise escaped notice. It was a reminder that family is not only living under the same roof, but the daily job of learning, forgiving, and sacrificing. As the tale came to an end, there was a somber reflection on the lessons that were learned. The path had been painful and messy, but it was also full of hope, a tale of a family trying to heal and move forward together. What would you do if your family were experiencing such issues? How far would you be willing to go to keep love alive? Let us know in the comments below.